Hello, everyone. Thank you, Gregor, for sending me the word. And I want to thank you all because it's my pleasure and honor to share our researches at the floor of DLM Forum. So thank you. Before we move to the next slide, I would like to tell you more information about our project partner. As you see and as you have heard, we are not alone in this project. The Research Institute for Soil and Water Conservation was established by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports. After several years, the Institute changed its subordinates and now belongs to the competence of Ministry of Agriculture. The Institute has a respectable position and not only in the Czech Republic. In year 2018, they were very successful in the United Nations competition with a tool called Anti-Erosion Calculator. This tool placed second, but also received the Expert Jury Award. Our agenda for next about 25 minutes is going to be this. At first, I'm going to introduce our project. Then I'm going to talk about GeoSIP structure ideas. In the third part of my presentation, data from our tool service is going to be published. And at last, I would like to open discussion or brainstorming about several issues. At the beginning of September 2019, the Institute for Soil and Water Conservation came to us with an idea to cooperate on a project. And I must say that our colleagues from the Institute had no idea what it means to preserve digital data for a long time. But important is the thing that they came at the right moment. We were ready to cooperate on this project. Their idea and plan was to create a project for ETA program, which supports potential of the humanities and exact science. This program is announced every year, and this year is going to be the 6th round of this program. As I have already mentioned, all projects in the ETA program must connect exact science with humanities. And it's obvious that geodata preservation is an area that meets this requirement. Now we must move back to the September 2019 because the Institute's proposal excited us and we had nothing to think about. We simply accepted this proposal and almost immediately started to work. In spring 2020, our project was selected and it's going to be supported till the end of 2022. The Institute's main goals are to produce a valid submission information package, to create a SIP creator tool for geodata, and establish at least semi-automatic operation for geodata preservation. Our goals are publishing of the methodology and GeoSIP specification, and also to acquire and preserve the Institute's information package. But the biggest task for us is to initiate something like enlightenment among our geodata producers to convince them about the importance of long-term preservation. Now you know all the important information about our project, and I would like to talk about geoinformation packages and their structure. I hope you will understand everything And if there is anything which requires further explanation, please use chat box, and I'll be happy to answer them later. At this moment, there are only 2 published GeoPackage structures, and I want to briefly summarize both of them. My first example is eArc GeoPackage, which has simple 3-folder structure. It contains folder data for data objects, metadata folder, and folder for documentation. It's easy, it's simple, but subfolder structure inside data folder is necessary. There is also Swiss GeoSIP or geodossier, if you want. It has just a bit different structure. It contains 4 folders, and main difference is presence of graph folder for graphical representation. Also, subfolder structure inside data folder is necessary. From my point of view, folder models look similar to metadata folder in eArc GeoPackage. Now, I would like to say a few words about our GeoPackage in draft version. As you see, we have taken an inspiration from both mentioned examples, and we have implemented it. Unlike the previous examples, our geodata package structure does not contain data folder. Because all objects are located inside folder components, we see no reason for data folder presence. But you can see that our idea is based on eArc solution. All main data objects are to be placed in folders complying to their format or MIME type, if you want. This can be an advantage for package validation. We have added separate folders for previous 2. The reason is to make simple objects easier to access in our catalog system. But we are still solving an issue with metadata. We understand metadata folder as the place for producer's metadata, which he would use when he decides to restore and deploy preserved data. But where is the right place for us, for archives, to place our metadata needed for deployment and browsing? Yes, they might be the same, but maybe not. Especially when the browsing tool will be in the future based on different technology and environment. On the next 2 slides, you can see 2 examples how we imagine package structure containing different types of metadata. My first example contains data compliant with Inspire standard in GML format. And second example shows geodata preserved in the CR format. If everything is clear, I would like to talk about our 2 surveys. To the competence of the National Archives belongs around 300 producers, from which 24 have own geoportal and produce geodata. Yes, it is sure that we have more geodata producers, but these are obvious. Geodata is created in the Czech Republic and used usually for wide scale of reports which are needed for important government decisions and plans. Geodata is also used for zoning plans of municipalities, changes of the cadastre, anti-erosion methods, salt yield potential for mining, and we can find more examples. Shortly, geodata is very important and valuable. Geodata is also widely published as open datasets. And I don't know how it looks in your countries, but in the Czech Republic, we notice big public requests for open data. And I have to mention environmental datasets, which are used for researches inside this sector. Our producers often use geodata produced by other producers as unpublished datasets from the sector or as published open datasets. And these datasets, they enrich with new data like new vectors, new lines, new points, and their importance and value grow significantly. We have a few producers who do not create metadata. However, I suspect them of misunderstanding the question, and I hope that they use some less known metadata. Because when you create data, then you need some metadata for management. We have a producer who claims doing updates of geodata in a 5 years period, and we have also one who does updates every day. But the most common periods of updates are 1 week and 1 month. Range of changes is usually small but important. The most used formats for data exchange in the Czech Republic are SHIP files, GeoTIFF files, and GML. GML format is slowly moving upwards, but still remains more as a wish than a real exchange format. Our producers often create geodata also on a contract for private sector. And these datasets are usually provided as SHIP files, GeoTIFFs, GML, and also GeoJSON, S3 database, and also in SQL dump format. We have also asked them how they manage their geodata. And for data management, producers use wide scale of systems, and most used data management system is file system, which is simply backed up. Other common management systems are S3, PostGIS, Oracle, MySQL, and we have also a producer who manages geodata in Firebird database. And the last question, which we just could not get over, is whether they dealt with the issue of long-term preservation. And surprisingly, they did not deal with it. Now let's continue with our archive survey. And first, I want to thank all participating archives who filled out our questionnaire. And what we have learned from it, I can say that only a few archives have already preserved digital geodata. And any cooperation with producers on a long-term preservation strategy is quite rare. Both answers probably describe the reason why cooperation and enlightenment is not big. We also wanted to know if there is any request to run own digital geoarchive, because Czech Land Surveying and Cadastre has this ambition, and we want to make right decision whether to run our own geoportal for geodata presentation, or to cooperate with them, or with another state institution and use their geoportal as a presentation tool for preserved geodata. We have also learned that only few archives have established some GeoSIP structure, and this structure is usually based in legislation or providing acts. Positive fact is that eArch GeoPackage structure is known among archives, but only few archives plan to use it. The reasons why we have received this answer are two. and both are mentioned in previous answers. It's the SIP compatibility with national standards and the lack of any preserved geodata. In details was answered question about format policy. Majority of archives has published format policy and now requests their producers to transfer data in a long-term preservation compliant formats. However, there are archives who plan to preserve shapefiles despite being it a proprietary format which is not suited for long-term preservation. And we belong among them. As I have mentioned above, data format conversion is expected and requested to be done by producers. Nevertheless, we discussed that it can be beneficial and even cheaper for the state if an archive has a powerful conversion tool. And the last question was our favorite, and I hope you will like it too. None of the archives employ full-time geoinformatics, although many would like to. But I can say that there is one archive who employs geoinformatics on part-time contract. Yes, there is one. Dear colleagues, I know my presentation is long and boring, but I'm almost done, and the last part is about to start. Me and my team have several questions. First one, is it better to preserve really big and complex geo information packages or split them in parts? According to OAIS Chapter 2.2.3, it is possible to join more SIP packages in one app, as well as it is possible to split one SIP into more smaller apps. Splitting can be beneficial, especially for geodata presentation and access for readers. In cases where we will preserve geodata in multiple representations, it can be better to split complex and big submission information packages into more apps. For example, one app can be compliant with Archive's presentation tool, and such app is going to be enriched with necessary browsing metadata, and second app, not compliant with our system, can be stored and preserved without this browsing metadata. Second question, where we shall place world file format data? Shall we keep it as a single file, or shall we make place for this data in METS file? This question opened our colleague from Land Surveying Institute, who manages aerial photo images. This data is small, simple, and we can easily find suitable place in our METS XML file. Because the following questions are related to geodata compatibility or interoperability, I want to start with two examples. The guy from bronze medal on the right side is good soldier Josef Švejk. He is the main character from the Czech famous novel written by Jaroslav Hašek. If you decide to read this book, which belongs to my favorite books, by the way, you may find that he got lost 2 times in this story. In fact, in both situations, he tried to desert the Austrian army. And my screencuts shows his tries. And my question is this: have you ever tried to examine downloaded offline maps? If not, I will have 2 examples. My first example comes from the Czech application mapy.cz. And second example comes from well-known Google Maps. If you look below the image, there, You can see that Czech tool uses raster data in Bryce 3D format, by the way, and database data stored in a set of SQL files. Similar approach uses Google Maps, so it's there, but their solution looks more lightweight and only one SQL file contains everything. At least it looks like that. Raster data and spatial data are in one file. And please, Gregor, would you be so kind and correct me if I'm wrong, but please wait till I'm done. And next questions which I want to open are these. Can we use CR format in similar way like mentioned applications do that with SQL files? And if yes, do we need something like spatial CR for geodata long-term preservation? It's because Oracle and PostGIS use different data types for geodata and migration. It's not easy. I would welcome any advice, and I hope that especially colleagues from Estonia can share their experience with preserving geodata in CR format. And the last question, if we can use CR for spatial data, do we need a special tool for browsing? I'm talking about something like spatial version of database preservation toolkit. And we must expect requests to present at least INSPIRE compliant preserved geodata. Yes, we are obliged to preserve data, but we should count that wide scale of requests from producers and from readers come. And that's all I wanted to tell you. Please feel free to contact me, especially if you want to join our survey or you find our structure interesting. Thanks for your attention and goodbye.
Well, thank you very much, Martin. And,
yes, okay, I can.
Yeah.
Hello.
So, yeah, I think we could have a long discussion regarding your presentation. There are a lot of things that I could explain. Also regarding if we discuss the GeoSIP and so on. So maybe our initial idea was to use existing geospatial standards because the CERT would be something that we can create for us archivists, and geospatial standards already define certain ways to store the data, like the geo package and so on. And there are discussions how to do this, but this is again why I proposed we have a discussion about the geospatial formats and should we have one, should we have many, how will we support this in the last part of this meeting today. So I recommend that we actually have this initial idea as a starting point for our discussion later on, because we also have members from Switzerland here actually use CERT a lot, and I don't know if anyone from Estonia is present. But regarding the metadata, there is also a lot of discussions if the metadata that pertains to geodata is actually data as understood by the archivist, and our metadata is actually describing the information package. So that is why in the EARC specification, we actually have the information about the geospatial metadata within the data structure. Maybe also one thing to discuss later on. And of course, one question was regarding the storage of the world file and this information. I don't know if you already read the 2.04 version of the e-archiving specification, where we added this description on how to store the information about the coordinate system or the world file, about the file in a way that is self-descriptive within the SAP package.
I haven't read it.
Okay,
now.
then we will. I also recommend that maybe we set up a meeting and maybe go over all the questions you pointed, because I have a lot of answers and I hope we could actually contribute to that.